everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the best free Google fonts for UI design. It's going to be extremely fun because you're going to realize every single one of the designs you make can pretty much be covered by the entirety of these fonts. So we're going to talk about 8 fonts that are incredible for UI design, and they cover every single aspect of doing fonts that you'd want to see. So let's just get started. The first font that I want to talk about, Inter. Inter is the safe, modern default font no matter what you're doing. It's designed for interfaces especially, and it has a crisp, clear, highly legible font build even at very, very small sizes. So that's pretty much the biggest factor for me when I'm checking fonts. If a font works really, really well for extremely small font sizes, it's a good font. The best use cases for Inter are dashboards, SaaS apps, mobile apps, or any other modern tech brand UIs where everything is techy, everything is modern, and yet you have to keep it sans serif. It can't look too traditional or too erudite. One of the best pairings if you're looking for serif contrast with Inter is Meriwether, because the two of them just look extremely good together and they just work, especially if you're looking for something serif, something to give you the traditional old school serif fonts vibe, which Meriwether brings to the table incredibly well. Number 2, Roboto, which is the Android standard. It's clean and versatile and has a great weight variety if you're just looking to expand things. Something that does bother me a little bit about Roboto is it's a little bit thin sometimes. When you're just trying to make things clean, you end up with a font that kind of looks very thin, but it's not the worst thing in the world if you want to have a UI that kind of looks very vertical and very straight with your use case. It is used with cross-platform products, especially if you're targeting Android users. Like if you've ever made an Android app, you'll know immediately the gold standard for all app development on Android as soon as you get started is Roboto. So that's kind of the land where it came from. But also it finds heavy use on the web, and it does have a lot of use on Google products as well, because if you go around looking for any Google documentation written by Google, there is a chance you'll find Roboto. I've seen it so many times that it's just fed into my memory now. You can pair it with Roboto Slab if you're looking for serif contrast, because Roboto is a superfamily on its own. The main Roboto font is a sans serif, but a superfamily consists of more than one font, and all of these fonts carry a little bit of a different vibe. Some are serif, some are sans serif, some are mono, and at the end of the day, they call them a superfamily because not only are they made by the same creators, but also they work together regardless of what context there is. So if you're looking for a mono font to go with Roboto, go for Roboto Mono. If you're looking for a condensed font to go with Roboto, look for Roboto Condensed. If you're looking for a serif font to go with Roboto, you can go for Roboto Slab or Roboto serif, and that's kind of the way superfamilies work. So Roboto is a superfamily, which is another interesting part of the Roboto universe. The third font for today is Poppins. This is the friendly geometric font. People use this for childlike things but also professional things, so it's kind of sitting in the middle of that territory. It has rounded shapes that make it approachable without it being completely childish like Neonito, which is quite very, very childish because everything ends roundedly. But Poppins has a hefty round vibe without getting rid of the edges. So there are a little bit of edges, which makes it professional still. It's used most often these days by startups, creative agencies, lifestyle brands, anyone trying to look bold, trying to look big without being too intimidating at first. If you're looking for an editorial touch, if you're looking for something softer to go along with Poppins, Laura is my best choice to pair with Poppins. Number 4, Open Sans. It is the global workhorse. I am so happy we are getting to talk about this today. It is excellent for readability in more than one language. So multiple languages create this wild trust for it across regions. You can find it in corporate sites, NGOs, multilingual products, anywhere you're looking for a deep, trustworthy vibe. So that's kind of the word I'd put along with Open Sans, trustworthy, because it blends so easily that you kind of don't recognize Open Sans as being used here until it's actually being used here. You can pair it with Playfair Display for elegant headings, because Playfair Display is the most trustworthy serif font and Open Sans is like the most trustworthy sans serif font, so you can pair them together and they go incredibly well. Lato, the quiet professional. Lato is neutral, but there is a little bit of warmth in its curves, and you can find it on professional services, minimalistic portfolios, B2B businesses, and it's kind of incredible because you get to see this pretty looking font, but it's also not taking a whole lot of space like Poppins or Monserrat, so it's it's kind of in front of you and it's still not in your face, if you know what I mean. So that's why Lato made it to the list. It pairs excellently with Meriwether or PT Serif if you're looking for editorial flavor to go along with Lato. Monserrat, the bold statement. Monserrat has strong geometric shapes and it works extremely well for large headings, which is why you'll find this extremely space-taking font on hero banners, landing page headlines, or creative projects. And it takes its own space, it takes its own area unapologetically. And if you're looking for body text to go along with Monserrat, Source Sans Pro is one of the best choices you can go ahead with, especially because when you're taking a font that's as wide as Monserrat, sometimes it makes sense to have a font that's slightly thinner in each individual font. And I think Source Sans Pro and also Roboto works incredibly well for this, because you're trying to balance a UI out at the end of the day. If the heading is too wide, you maybe want to have something that balances it out a little bit on the body font front. The 7th font for today is Source Sans Pro, which is the UI classic. Source Sans Pro is Adobe's first open source font built for clarity and neutrality. When Adobe builds something open source, you know I'm all over it, simply because most things from Adobe stock comes to mind for this example. Most things from Adobe are behind such huge weird paywalls. Not that I'm not an Adobe member, I am, but it's still so weird because you can't openly, sometimes I can't openly put Adobe things on a list such as this because it becomes this whole paywall kind of thing. But Adobe puts something on an open source display and it does function quite well, like all things Adobe. So Source Sans Pro makes it to today's list. Any product where you'd want typography to stand out is where you'd find the perfect use case for Source Sans Pro. You can pair it with Playfair Display or Source Serif Pro, which is from the Source Sans Pro family. For contrast, Source Sans Pro, Source Serif Pro are once again two fonts from the same Source Pro superfamily, and that's kind of from the house of Adobe. The final font for today is WorkSans, the Digital Chameleon. And I call it the Chameleon because it's optimized for on-screen text and it has a great range of weights. So you can use it for mobile-first projects or modern editorial sites, and it kind of takes the entirety of the spectrum if you'd want the one font to be the all-rounder, the one font to cover it all. If you want to pair it with something historic, because I've done this, Cardo is the font for you to go with. And that's my simplest suggestion for a little bit of a historical touch, which WorkSans can bring as the sans serif font in a site that's kind of looking for the historical, ancient, dreamy vibe. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a couple of bonus tips, because if you're using these fonts, if you are a UI UX designer, these are going to be super duper helpful. Number 1, readability first. Test your font at a body size ratio of 14 to 16 pixels for desktop or 16 to 18 pixels for mobile, because you have to make things a little bit larger on mobile sometimes, because mobile is eventually small on its own. Number 2, brand fit. Make sure to check your brand fit, because if you are able to match your font's mood with the product's personality, things don't really get any better than that. That's the gold standard that we're aiming for here. And make sure to limit your fonts to 1 to 2 fonts, because sometimes people will use so many fonts, it is scattered, it looks weird, it looks inconsistent, and it is definitely a nightmare for the user to deal with on the UI front as well. Making sure to use weights and sizes on 1 to 2 different fonts is such a great idea if you're looking to add variations, instead of keeping on adding more families. And font super families are the one-step solution. If you're confused about font pairings, just go with any super family of fonts and use the 1 or 2 or 3 fonts from inside that super family, and you can't really go wrong with it. So that has been my top 8 incredible Google fonts that you can find for free. Use them on your UI designs right now, no matter what the use case may be. And I will see you on the next one. Until then, keep on designing, and goodbye.